Welcome. Welcome. Come on in, come on down, come to the front of the room. No one sits at the back. We don't bite. And we want this to be a true conversation altogether. So we will start literally in 20 seconds. In that 20 seconds, I will fill it with telling you my name. I'm Greg Overmans. I'm the head of marketing here at Switch. I'm joined by Mike and David, if you see the same configuration of Mike above me and David below me. And we are going to get this started shortly. Some simple housekeeping. There's a chat on the right side. Please use it. Let us know who you are, where you're coming from, say hi, how disappointed you are that the Blue Jays lost, whatever it is. And throughout this conversation, have questions, post them in there. Mike and David can see those questions. They may be able to answer them if it's relevant in the moment. We'll also have lots of times at the end for question and answer. So we want to make sure you leave here knowing all the details about this funding program, how to see it, eligibility. So don't be shy around questions. And then this will be recorded. So if you want to see this afterwards, or if a colleague wants to watch it as well, you can share it. So it's 3:01. Without further ado, I'm going to bow off the stage and join the chat, and I'm going to hand this over to Mike and David. Take it away, guys.
Great. Thanks so much, Greg. And welcome everyone to the call. We're here to talk about the ChargeON program. This program originally opened in 2023 and has now been reopened for a new intake with wider eligibility and honestly parameters that allow more folks to be successful. So without any further ado, we'll go down to the slide here, slide 9, and we'll get going. So I'm Mike Frazina. I'm the Director of Policy at Switch Energy, and I have David, our BDM for the Ontario region, joining me on the call. We are here today to talk about how to be successful with ChargeON. And the timing of this webinar is important because ChargeON opened literally today. So we have 6 weeks between now and the application due dates to get in all of the applications and receive as much of the funding as possible. So David, can we go to slide number 10 to talk about ChargeON? One more down. So yeah, so the government of Ontario committed in their 2025 budget to investing $66 million to fund level 2 and direct current fast charging, so fast chargers, stations for municipalities, businesses, not-for-profits, the broader public sector, so hospitals, universities, schools, etc., and Indigenous organizations. For some folks, this means that you'll have up to 75% of your eligible costs covered. So this is a big change. Last time, the cost coverage was 50% and only for a limited amount of folks. But the parameters are a little bit more broad this time, as I said. So that's really exciting. I'll also just quickly add that, yes. So if you are an Indigenous community or a business anywhere in the province of Ontario, you are eligible for up to 75% cost coverage of your eligible expenditures. If you are in Northern Ontario, you are eligible for up to 75% of eligible expenditures. If you are in Southern Ontario and you are a municipality with a population below 170,000, you can have up to 75% of your eligible expenditures covered. If you're in Southern Ontario and you are a municipality above 170,000, a business, a not-for-profit, or a member of the broader public sector, that's where the cost coverage goes down a little bit to 50%. And if you are a site that's open less than 24/7, 365, so a golf course, a marina, a ski hill, and you want to move forward with charging, and you have a great opportunity to, really provide an amenity for those customers, but you don't want to be open all the time, you can get up to 25% of your cost covered. So still some help to get there. And the charger requirements are not that onerous, I would say, compared to what we've seen in some other programs in Canada and the US. Level 2s, they require a minimum of 4 per site, 4 ports per site, which is not that many. For DCFCs, there's a minimum of 1 port per site if it's located with a level 2 port. 2 fast chargers are required if not. And what I want to make clear about the DCFC requirements is that a multi-port DCFC station does not count as 2 fast charging ports. So you need to make sure that you have 2 direct current fast chargers if that's the route you're going. If not, you can have one with 1 port and a level 2 port. It must be a new charger and it must be purchased after the program launch date. It must be certified for use in Canada and operational for 5 years or more. And that's an important part of the merit criteria, but we'll get into that a little later. Some requirements that are kind of interesting here is that it must be installed by a licensed contractor. So you cannot have someone without a license. It must be visible from the nearest public roadway and lit for evening use. So gone are the days where you're relying on an app, fumbling on your phone in the middle of the night to the dark back corner of a parking lot and navigating to a charger that may or may not work. It has to be visible from the roadway and it has to be lit. There has to be wayfinding signage, so they have to direct you there. If hours of operation are appropriate, it has to be included. And like most charging parking spaces in Ontario, there has to be a sign. For payments, you can require a network account, app, or membership, but that can not be the only way to pay. So a payment method that does not require these features is important. So it can be tap to pay with a credit card, or it can be a guest checkout on a website. Either of those will work. You must have a fulsome operations and maintenance plan. The province is investing money and they want to make sure that these stations are up for as long as possible. If you own the property, you must provide a title deed, property tax assessment roll, mortgage documentation, that kind of thing to ensure that you actually can put chargers on the site. If you are not the owner of the site, then you have to provide some sort of documentation like a lease agreement or a legal agreement that says that you have permission to access the site, and there's some legal documentation to prove that. If you are a band council, you must actually, and the site is located on a reserve, you must actually have written evidence that there's band council support for the project. If you are a business applicant, you must provide articles of incorporation, confirming your corporate status. Another sort of important requirement is that you have to have proof of funds. So this works in that the applicant takes on all funding responsibility and is reimbursed after the fact for providing the service. So you actually have to have all the money available. And if you have funding from other contributors like the federal government, municipal governments, regional governments, whomever, you must actually list that as well. In terms of a site plan, you must have an illustrated plan showing the location of the chargers on the site, proximity of adjacent streets, and existing or proposed lighting. Okay, next slide. So this is a fun one. Eligible expenditures include, but I wouldn't say they're limited to, charging equipment, networking hardware, site preparation, and finishing. External professional services are allowed, but it's important that the distinction is this is external. If you cannot receive remuneration for services that you provide like in-house through a salaried employee. So in-kind does not count. But if you are contracting to a engineer or a design firm, that would be an eligible expense. Licenses and permits are allowed. Environmental assessments are allowed. There's a per project cap of $1 million, but a single applicant can submit multiple applications exceeding $1 million. What I would say is that expenses that you do have to provide a list of total project costs as part of your application. You have to include expenses in there that are not eligible for reimbursement, like salaries, commissions, overhead, GST, legal fees, accessory costs in kind, that sort of thing, must be included but are not eligible expenditures. Additionally, ongoing operation costs like electricity, subscriptions, maintenance should not be listed in the total project costs. So as I said, there's a tight timeline. So we've got the request for proposals application window opened today, and everything has to be in by December 15th. Funding decisions will come April 1st. There'll be a quick negotiation period and signature, and then you have a year from project completion date to actually getting your chargers operationalized. What's important about this is when you pick a partner to help with your install, you really should find someone who has some experience and who can actually deliver within the time frame for this program. The good news is that you get your full entitlement for compensation as quickly as possible. So new for 2026, like I said, up to 75% for certain circumstances. No proof of utility engagement is required this time. And this is important because last time that was a significant bottleneck where a lot of folks were actually waiting for a response from their utility. This time, MTO will actually contact the local distribution companies on behalf of successful applicants to understand whether there's actually available capacity in the area. There's no technology caps, so only eligible cost caps. So this means that 75% of all eligible expenditures are reimbursed by the program without like a $5,000 cap for level 2s, as we've seen in ZEVIP, or other power caps that exist otherwise. Seasonal businesses are actually eligible at a reduced rate. I would say that opens up an opportunity for, like I said earlier, ski hills, marinas, golf courses, etc. All communities are eligible, regardless of population size. So in the 2023 intake, there was a limitation in terms of where you could actually locate the chargers, and now that has been lifted. There are two streams to the program. There's public corridor and public community. Public corridor is aimed at supporting Ontarians driving long distances, so it's intended to connect different communities. It's intended primarily for fast direct current fast charging with co-located level 2s. Priority locations are within 1.6 kilometers of major roads and are scored based on traffic, EV adoption, and distance between chargers. Projects will be scored using the NRCan charging planning map, and this will be updated. This is the current version for Southern Ontario, but it will be updated again in the next few weeks. So I encourage you to keep looking at that, and I will paste the link in the chat here. The other stream, which is also quite interesting, is the public community stream. So this intends to serve the public charging needs of local residents, businesses, and visitors who lack access to private charging. These will be beyond 1.5 kilometers from a major road. So this is intended for communities with traffic that are either quite dense or for folks that don't have chargers at home. So sometimes people live in multifamily settings, people live without garages, places where there's not actually a lot of supply, electrical supply, or the situations where there's not a path to home charging. And in this stream, level 2 stations play a much more prominent role, but you may find that DCFCs are appropriate as well. Finally, scoring metrics, the most important thing. So geographic location, obviously, use the map link, use the map, find the spot where there's not a lot of charging nearby, or the charging that exists is oversubscribed. And that will give you a lot better of an opportunity. Charger technology. So points are given for chargers that include multiple connector types, battery storage, demand management, and some that meet made in Canada criteria. Note that that's not necessarily just the charger. It could also be the technology. So the software is developed in Canada or something like that. User amenities. So points are awarded for sites that provide useful user amenities and safety features like cameras, light bollards, things like that. Uptime. So if you have an operations and maintenance plan that ensures high port uptime and maximize charging output, you actually receive more points in your application for that. Future proofing and expansion potential. Points are given for plans that show locations that can be expanded to accommodate more and or faster charging stations in the future. Interestingly, and this is the first time I've seen this, but points are actually awarded to incentivize turnover. So what the province wants to see there is they want people to charge, but not linger on the spot. So loitering is quite discouraged. Washroom access, they want people to be able to go to the bathroom when they have when they're stopped for charging, which is a great amenity. Points are just for site design. Points are awarded for designs that include a pull-through space for vehicles with trailers, extra security features, and accessibility features beyond standard requirements. So, wider parking spots and that sort of thing. And finally, points are awarded for completing and submitting the work plan template that's included in the application package under Appendix F. And then I'll just quickly get into what's required, and then I'll pass over to David. But it's a long process. It's much longer than it has been in previous years. So what I'll say is that there's a client intake form that should be filled out as quickly as possible if you're interested, or if you're working with someone who's interested. If you meet the requirements, you'll be allowed to complete a full application. An OCI rep will endorse your application and for eligibility and suitability prior to submission. All submitted full applications will go completeness, but you will get a chance to fix it if it's not fully, if it's missing something. Applications will be endorsed to MTO, but MTO makes the final decisions. And the Ontario Centre for Innovation under OVIN will actually notify you about decisions made on the project. And I believe that is my part of the presentation. So I'll pass over to David. And I see there's a couple of questions in the chat that I'll respond to while David's speaking.
Perfect. Thanks, Mike. I appreciate you running through the program. Lots of great and exciting changes this year. So thanks for summarizing. I just wanted to quickly highlight a couple of customers who've had success with funding working with SWTCH in the past. So one we've got on screen here is the Fairmont Hotel in Toronto, who worked with us to secure funding for 5 level 2 charging stations to use for their guests at the hotel and restaurant. And next we can see McKinnon Brothers Brewing Co., brewery out in Bath, Ontario, who was successful in receiving ChargeON funding last time to install a level 3 fast charger for folks using their retail store and their restaurants. So a couple great examples of some success stories working with SWTCH to secure funding. So Mike did a great job of summarizing, what's new, what's important, what's key to know about the ChargeON program. And one of the things that he mentioned is finding a great partner and understanding having someone who can support you through this process. It's a lot of details and a lot of requirements that are required, and finding someone with experience is a great first step. And I think the folks on the call here have already taken the great first step there, checking out SWTCH. So where for those who maybe have never heard of us before, our mission is to solve the challenges of deploying EV charging infrastructure in multifamily and commercial buildings. In this case, obviously, we're discussing primarily commercial properties, given these are public facing. So want to dive into a little bit of how we support those customers, how we can support you even further with the ChargeON program, as well as if you're successful, what does that look like working with SWTCH beyond the successful application? We have about 25,000 chargers on our network across North America with really fantastic uptime numbers. Like Mike mentioned earlier during the scoring criteria, uptime and availability of charging stations is going to be a key criteria that the Ministry of Transportation uses to when they review your application. So working with a partner like us who is committed to that type of metric, certainly going to help support the application. We're a Canadian-based business. Our headquarters is in Toronto, just off of the Gardiner. Our software is all built in Canada. And we've got folks across Canada as well as in the US. So want to dive into a little bit about what our process looks like. So obviously we're talking about the funding program here. So what does that look like from start to finish if you were to engage with us? So firstly, we would take a look at design. So maybe EV charging, this is your first exposure to EV charging. You've heard about it. You're not really sure where to begin. We can provide some guidance there. So helping you determine what is the appropriate electrical sizing, layout, hardware options, whether we're looking at level 2, level 3, understanding who your customers are and what's actually going to be the right fit for your property, so that you get the most out of putting in these EV chargers. We then look at quoting and actually providing you with pricing. We are a turnkey EV charging solutions provider. So we would take a look at incentives such as this ChargeON program, other relevant incentives that might be available in your area, and potentially different financing options outside of a capital purchase to understand what options are available for you to have charging at your site at a cost that works within your budget. We then would work with one of either our licensed contractors who we have a relationship with, or yours if you have a preferred and trusted channel or partner who you've done electrical work with in the past, to ensure that the chargers are installed and deployed safely, meeting code, and again, meeting all the requirements of the ChargeON program. And then lastly, this is where sort of the magic happens for us. This is the management portion. And this is what happens post-install, day 2 of the chargers being installed. And that's where we are going to provide our switch management services, which include a number of things such as 365 24/7 customer support, load management, technical support, data and analytics, a number of things which I'll cover in the next few slides. But from start to finish, that's typically how we work with our customers. And that management portion is really where you'd be interacting a ton with Switch from that management side. So when we talk about looking at hardware and what's the right hardware for you, there's a couple things that are important to know. Our software is built on the open communication standard for EV charging, which is called Open Charge Point Protocol. That may mean nothing to you, but it's very important for you to consider when you're making a decision on your EV charging provider, because in short, everything that we're providing you with is non-proprietary. It allows you to be flexible and future-proof your site to ensure that your investment is not put at risk, as the hardware is compatible with other software providers. Very similarly to the way that we think about an unlocked cell phone, being able to move from one carrier to another without having to replace the hardware. Very similar approach here, which is not necessarily the industry standard. So something that again helps you feel confident that you're moving forward with a solution that you have flexibility down the road should you decide to make a change. Again, we are a hardware provider, so we can make recommendations, both level 2 and level 3. Here's a small selection of some of our top units that we recommend for a lot of our customers. So we have worked with some of the top providers in the industry. This also allows us to be flexible, this OCPP approach, and being able to work with the new providers, move with the market as consumer changes grow and preferences change and new players enter the market. We're able to work with sort of the best in class, and again recommend best in class for our customers. So again, once you have your chargers installed, once you have your site is ready to start operating, how does it actually get managed? What does that look like for you? So every customer has access to our Switch portal, which is an admin dashboard that will give you real-time insights and data into your charging stations and into your site. If you're a customer with multiple sites, this can look like data for a specific site or all your entire portfolio. So again, options there. There is a number of different reporting capabilities, both ESG, transaction history, number of things that you can pull from, uptime percentage that you can pull from the portal, which allows you to, again, meet some of the requirements of the ChargeON program, and allows you to do a lot of administrative, day-to-day changes, like updating your charging rates, implementing loitering fees. Again, another point that Mike had mentioned earlier around keeping turnaround moving, and implement other policies or make changes to make sure that you're, providing the best charging experience for visitors at your site. This is something that we see customers use either a lot, some less so, but again, you'll have the option and the ability to really have the entirety of your EV charging set up at the palm of your hand through this portal. When your drivers actually come to use the chargers, how do they pay? That's a question we get often from folks. And again, like Mike mentioned, part of the requirements of the ChargeON program are having multiple ways for people to pay. So the most typical way that we see customers pay with Switch today is through our app. It's a free app that basically allows you to access different charging stations through an access code or through a charger ID. That allows you to set up an account with your credit card and transact against a balance. So this can all be done through the app. It can also be done through RFID card. So each person who signs up for a Switch or a Switch account has access to a complimentary RFID card, which understands your details. You simply tap the charger. It will recognize that you are, an approved user and start your charging session without pulling out your phone. There's also the option to check out as a guest through our web browser. So multiple ways to charge with Switch, as well as credit card POS terminal accessibility. So you can see on the far right there, we do have the option to include actual physical credit card readers on the charging stations to allow customers to pay in a way that maybe feels a little bit more familiar, or if they're just not used to paying for charging through an app, if maybe they're new to EV, if they're renting an EV, or they just want a simple, quick method to be able to pay and move on. We do have that option. So again, fully sort of complying with some of the key needs from the ChargeON program. Another question that we get often is around capacity, right? What happens if we don't have capacity to actually install chargers, or we don't think we have capacity to install chargers, or we're not sure? That's where Switch Control comes in. This is our dynamic load management technology. Again, not just to rehash again, keeping the conversation around ChargeON, part of what Mike had mentioned earlier is around, performance and ensuring you're delivering the maximum output at all times to your drivers. Well, there's a number of different load management strategies and technologies that we can implement. In short, it allows you to maximize the existing infrastructure that you have in place so that if you do not want to invest in increasing the capacity at your site, you have the ability to still offer EV charging within your existing infrastructure. That is done primarily through our software. It effectively dynamically changes how much output each EV is getting depending on the total demand for charging and electricity at the property. So again, a great tool that allows you to really maximize your existing infrastructure, keep costs low, but still deliver a really optimal driving experience and charging experience for your customers. So that's a quick snapshot of what we do. Again, we certainly have a ton of experience working with funding programs. We've got a ton of great knowledge and experience on the team. We really want this to be a success for our customers, and we've got really all the great resources to help you access this funding, which is out there. And so again, it's a tight timeline to get the application in, but we're here to help you and make sure that you can secure those funds if you're interested in participating. So wanted to save some time here at the end for some questions.
So much for going for that run through. And now for sure is the time, Mike, if you also want to come back on stage, what questions do you have about the application, about the funding, about eligibility? Did you already address the question from Angelica, but what if the utility delays the work period?
Yeah, I did. Essentially, my understanding is that MTO is very reasonable about circumstances outside of the control of the customer. So if that is a prospect, I would engage with MTO and OVIN as quickly as possible to make sure that they're aware of these situations out of their control and to see whether extensions are possible.
Right. That's great. Everyone that's here, what questions? There we go. Is there a first come, first serve element to applications, or any applications received before the deadline considered equal? Great question.
Yeah, so great question. Every application received before the deadline is considered equal. There's no first come, first serve. So I would just caution you not to leave everything until the last minute, because it's a fairly involved process with the various back and forths with Oven. So I'd encourage you to start the process as early as possible with your partner and or site.
And now when it comes to who submits that application, does the company who is owning the chargers have to do it? Can Switch do it on my behalf? I know that's another question, an area.
Yeah, so generally the company that's owning and operating the station is supposed to submit it on their own behalf, but Switch can absolutely help with that application, developing content and potentially even supporting the actual final submission.
Question from Mandy: what is the potential cyber risk with your software and/or portal?
So David might be better equipped to answer that, but I know we're SOC 2 compliant.
Yeah, I was going to say we are SOC 2 certified and compliant, and we've got I know we have a privacy policy as well as posted on our website. So team takes cybersecurity and data security very seriously, and we've taken some additional steps to protect that data.
If site has BESS projects under a planning process with submissions of initial application for permitting, it's a mouthful, would that help with the charging infrastructure funding under this program?
If the BESS is specifically for other uses, then no. But if that's, I guess, as far as I can go without knowing specifics, like the battery storage backup should be specifically focused on supporting the actual charging output rather than like a broader building level scope or utility level scope, I guess.
Great. Did you financing, or for those people who are interested but are curious about the capital costs that isn't covered by funding, Dave, do you want to talk about like options that exist potentially with Switch?
Yeah, certainly. Definitely understand that even at a reduced rate, there are still a significant upfront cost to EV charging. So we do offer and do take a look at owner-operator models where Switch would own the charging infrastructure. This is specifically for level 3 stations, where we would be the owners of the equipment and would then collect revenue. We would work out some sort of an agreement between the property and ourselves. But if capital costs are of a concern at any rate, certainly there are options available. So happy to discuss those if that sounds like something that's a better fit for your property.
Great. Derek followed up about the BESS. We can dedicate certain capacity for charging. If that helps me.
Yeah, in that scenario, I would just follow up directly with Oven with the particulars of that case. I suspect it's not going to be common, and there may be a method to do it. So I wouldn't go any further than just follow up with Oven, get some clarity before you go too far in your application.
Wonderful. Thanks. This is great. Great information. Great conversations in the chat. Emails, Mike and David, feel free to email them. We'll also include their emails in the email you guys all get after this with a link to the video. Feel free to let them know if you have any questions between now as you go through this application process. And if you want to have a conversation about your situation or how you can really maximize, David's available to have conversations with any of you to figure out if it's a good fit. And if so, like, how do you take those steps forward ASAP to get ready for the application deadline, December 15th. And if you all have any question about EV charging generally, we're here to help. Ultimately, we want as many chargers as possible on the roads. And so we're here if you need it. Otherwise, have a great rest of the day, everyone, and take care.
Take care. Bye.
Ready? Much.